Welcome back to Greenhawk Sanctuary.
So our first prop turned into a blessing is underneath our foundation here. So you all have probably watched videos and whatnot, but we never ever anticipated the front of or the back of the house right here to be this high. So it's about 9 feet by the time you get the railroad tied in there for the foundation. Part of that problem solving was allowing us to still have what's going to be our greenhouse and not shrink our square footage any, because we're at about 560 square feet with the greenhouse. We couldn't let go of the greenhouse, and because that's part of our passive solar heat, it's also part of our gray water system. And we wanted a little bit more square footage since we've been used to the 10 by 10 tent down there. But so the sweet blessing out of it. And right now I can't walk through, so we have this tarp anchored down here. But notice we've got the X braces here and then that opening gap, which will eventually be a door, which allows us to come in and right now just have a general cross space. But at some point in time, we will be able to wall off this center section down here and have the perfect above ground, essentially, cold cellar. So for our food storage, which I think is a super big plus if we're going off grid and homesteading. And of course the rest of the space, just general crawl space, can be used for storage too. But I just thought that was a really big plus of having to go through all the chaos that is involved when raising our foundation this high, that we ultimately get additional refrigeration space down here. Second problem that turned into a blessing is this little unfinished deck here. So unfortunately, as I'm filming it, it's covered up with a tarp. We keep a tarp there that we can pull back so that we can cover our floor in case it rains and protect it from dew at the time being, as the roof isn't up here. But this was a really cool scenario. So we never once thought about how we were going to work on this wall here. So the foundation is 9 feet off the ground, and then this wall will be 12 feet off the ground. Let's see if I can zoom out here. So we never thought about like how in the world are we going to work on that, and that's going to be our greenhouse frame, right? So it's also going to be like old windows, a bunch of glass to work with. So my dad started talking about having to build scaffolding because we won't be able to get a ladder down there all the way up here. So it just seemed crazy to spend the money on renting scaffolding, and it also spent crazy to spend the money to build it. So we were like, well, is there any way we could potentially get a deck out of it, like if we're gonna have to build it? So essentially, and hopefully I'll have some pictures at the end of this video to show you the progress on it. But so essentially we are going to get a mini or a micro deck. It will only be about 3 feet. We're hoping to have like a sliding glass door there in the middle where we can access it, and we'll have to rail it in. But we'll get to multi-use this as a way to help with this back wall, to put a ladder on it and get up. And then at the end of it too, we have a little bit of outdoor space where we'll be able to stand and check out our view. And just be able to get some fresh air. So I thought that was a plus. And you'll see, I mean, it is small because we can't work into the trees, and we're not taking the trees out. We do have the potential of building out this way a little further someday, but we'll see. But I thought that was an awesome problem solving idea that potentially actually added on to our livable square footage. So kudos to Dad for that idea. So our next problems that led to a blessing is technically how we set these frame posts, I guess is what we're calling them. Hopefully that's right. And we've still got 4 more to put in, but so we were not keen on the idea of having to use 6x6s or purchase them. We really wanted to try to use some wood off the land, but it's still too green to use. And obviously we wouldn't want these posts to not be supportive, because that's our entire structural system here. But I don't know if you all have ever looked at the like brackets that they make for these things to anchor them in. So typically, right, there'd be like a little bracket down below that they sit in. And then you screw them in or toenail them from there. But they are so expensive. I think they were like between $35–50 a piece. Not quite sure which range of that. But regardless, to do all of these, right, super expensive, at least for us. And remember, we're trying to do this on a budget. We're trying to do this with the less amount of money possible. So we were kind of stuck, not sure how we were going to go about that in order to stay in budget. It wasn't possible. So we went to Tractor Supply or Rural King, or kind of looking at like bolts and things we could use. So essentially all that we did was end up drilling a hole out on the bottom of each 6x6. They went around and took these lag bolts and anchored them into the floor foundation. And then we were able to sit these 6x6s up on this. So there's a hole, goes down underneath it, and it just keeps it from like moving this way, right? Keeps it kind of anchored in. So I thought that was really a smart deal. I'm not sure how much these are like at the store. Justin found them from somebody like secondhand. They were just stored up, and paid $10 for the box. So that was a huge blessing there. Think about that. Like, we got to pay $10 for this versus like almost $200–300 just for the support system. Not even considering the amount that each 6x6 cost. So I would definitely consider that a blessing. Now, you'll see like we have them all tied off right now, supported and anchored, and that's just to help support them until we get the headers on. And then we will go on the inside of each one and toenail them in with some good screws. We're going to try to avoid toenailing the outside, because we'll get some exposed wood so it will be fun. We'll have some wood, hopefully, that will break up the cob and give us a little bit more of that woody cabin that we were initially really wanting to go with. So, and this is our last problem that came off in a blessing. It's kind of crazy to think of this in a blessing, so I guess we're just like shifting perspective here. But we were fortunate enough to have, we were fortunate enough that my dad has all these tools, right? This has been my father's line of work. So not everybody has the ability to just go to their parents' house and borrow tools, even though we do have some of our own. We just in a couple years started like building our tool collection, right? But regardless of whether or not like some places like Home Depot let you rent and all that jazz, there are ways to get these machines essentially without purchasing them. But so we spent the day hauling off a couple table saws. This one's under here. I'm not gonna uncover it for you, but anyway, some bigger saw machines to help cut these big 6x6s and railroad ties and things like that. And we get over here and laugh because our generator is not big enough to run them. Even though both of these say 1500 amps and our generator is 1800, just starting them up, it pulls way too much power and needs a bigger motor in order to run them. So at first we were kind of like, shit, that sucks. But the funny thing is that we realized that really we had everything that we needed. So we had a skill saw, we had a jigsaw, and then just some type of hand saw, which may be like a skill hand saw, but it's cordless instead of with a cord. And so the beauty of that, and not having to use these big like table saws, right, is that we were able to like put the lumber in the truck and then cut out the notches and all that stuff and then move them over here instead of having to like pull them out, put them on a table, cut them down, and then move them. So we got to move them less, essentially. Now today we did drag a couple of them out because they were these big 12s, and worked on them over here on the table. But it didn't require a whole lot of moving, and Justin did most of his prep work with them on the bed of the truck. So it sounds silly, but if you get started moving these big old things, it's a lot of weight. So there is something to be said sometimes about using smaller tools. So just wanted to share that in case any of you all out there are doing any projects or deciding to build your own house or whatever, that, you know, you don't always have to have the big old things. It's definitely possible to make what you have work. So those were our excellent problem solving situations that led to a blessing. Let me know what you think. Do you think any of that's a blessing? Would you do things a different way? What ways have you all problem solved? So yeah, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you all. Thank you to the people who let us purchase these lag bolts secondhand. Thanks to Dad for loaning us the tools and helping us get up these posts here. It's been a lot of help. We appreciate it. All right. See you guys next time.